Hey, what's up? It's your host, Tori, and who is ready to be petty? Happy holidays, everybody. If you are listening to this on Christmas to escape your family, thank you. God bless your soul. I hope the rest of the holiday is really, really good for you. Today, I'm talking with Maddie about the Bachelorette finale. It was a pretty good one. I'm pretty satisfied with the ending, but we get into all of the details in this episode. One thing that happened while we were actually recording this episode is Carly and Evan from Bachelor in Paradise announced that they were getting separated, which I was actually really upset about because I love them together. Weirdly, because I don't care for Evan Bass at all, but I'm so sad that another couple kind of bites the dust in Bachelor Nation. I loved that they didn't announce on Instagram. They went through Us Weekly or something like that. Get that divorce going. Truly. Anyways, what's coming up for RTBP? I'm definitely going to do a solo episode. I have some funny stories that have happened in my personal life that I need to share on the pod. And I'm going to be talking with a special guest about Princess Diana and the crown and the royal family. And then I also have scheduled an Enneagram expert to do a celeb deep dive. So I'm very excited on what's to come with RTBP. If you would like me to talk about something specifically or want a guest on, just DM me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at RTBP Podcast, and I'll make sure that I do that. Truly, as always, I should probably just add this into my intro. I did something weird with the recording and the audio ain't great. I apologize in advance. Again, I just feel like that should be a constant caveat with RTBP nowadays, but one day I'll get it, maybe when I'm a professional podcaster. We should get to the show. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Maddie. I'm here with a very special guest to talk all about the Bachelorette finale. Maddie's here. Maddie, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I found Maddie on TikTok. You just came up on my For You page, and I loved your hilarious takes on The Bachelorette, and I was like, I need to invite her onto the podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it was mostly quarantine boredom got the best of me, and that mixed with this insane season of The Bachelorette, I was like, I'm just gonna talk. And I mean, a few people liked what I had to say, so that was good.
Nice. I love that. Can you tell the listeners of RTBP a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm 22 years old. I live right outside of Boston in Massachusetts. I just graduated college this past spring. And I'm one of those lucky 2020 graduates that's living at home unemployed. So yeah, living my best life here. But yeah.
That's so funny and also tragic. I feel so bad for recent grads and high school grads and stuff like that.
I
It's
know.
just it's so dark.
It's so crazy.
What did you study in college?
I was a marketing major and an English minor.
Nice, nice. And how did you get into The Bachelor? Have you been watching since day one?
I think I first started watching in high school. I think the first season I watched was Nick Viall season.
Oh,
And
nice.
then I watched JoJo season of The Bachelorette after that. And then I was kind of out of it for a while and I really got back into it with Colton season. And I've been pretty much loyal ever since then. So
Nice. Are
yeah.
you the type of fan that reads the articles and deep dives the social media, or what's your level of fandom?
I think it kind of depends on the season. I think this season I was really I kind of was I need to know everything because it was just first of all, we had been not we were in a hiatus for so long. So by the time it actually started filming again and everyone was like, "Oh, Claire's leaving and Tayshia's here." It was I needed to know more. So I did kind of spoil it for myself this season, which was really sad, but I feel like it was kind of inevitable. Yeah, I think it kind of varies season to season. There's definitely people in each season that I grow obsessed with a little bit, but overall, I don't love to spoil it for myself and read too deep into it until the very end, and then I I'm stalking everyone and deep diving into everything.
Okay, me too. Did you like spoil yourself with Reality Steve?
Yes, that was how I found out. I mean, he was like how I found out about who was at the resort and everything like that. Like we were
Right.
saying the other day how Hannah Ann was supposed to be there and where was she? I have
Where?
no idea. But yeah, I think I was kind of seeing those things, which made it like, okay, I need to know what's going on. And then that's how I ruined it for myself and found out who ended up winning the Bachelorette this season. And but yeah, I usually try to stay away from that because I love the surprise at the end of it.
Me too. But I also spoil myself every single time.
Mhm.
So I just ruin
Mhm.
it.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
I'm like, why am I disappointed while
I know.
watching the finale? Like, it's so tough. So I wanted to talk about this a little bit because I spoiled myself
Mhm.
through Reality Steve, but I read that Brendan was the winner.
Oh, really?
Yes. So
That is so weird.
I think I read at a point where he still had the wrong spoilers. So
Oh,
literally this entire so the shock for me was fucking when Brendan left.
right, right. Oh my God, you must have been so confused.
I was so confused because he's like usually dead on, but he ended up updating his information that Zac was the
Okay.
winner. But I like so it kind of was still like thrilling for me when he like
Right, right.
left. But
Well, it was really thrilling for me when Ben came back because I did not see that one coming, and I was like, okay, this is good. I still get like a little surprise, but no, yeah, I had known that Zach was gonna end up with Tayshia for a while, and it's funny because one of my friends actually was like, yeah, I heard that this was like a couple weeks ago. She's like, I heard that she ends up with Brendan, but then he's not ready for engagement. So she kind of like knew everything, and that kind of spoiled that for me, but it's fine. But yeah, when Ben came back, that was like my little surprise there.
totally, especially with Bennett coming back. Usually, like,
Mhm.
it's kind of like one per season. So I was really
Right.
surprised. And then that Ivan got sent home and Ben stayed was like even more surprising.
That didn't make sense at all, I feel, because like you had just sent Ben home and then he comes back and then you're like, okay, I'll send Ivan home. That really made no sense. But
Okay, I think we should get into it
okay, let's
like
do it.
more than before because
Hmm.
I was so confused about Ivan's exit because they're referencing this conversation that we just
Hmm.
like straight up didn't see, but they
Hmm.
gave us like no context. And I feel like usually when it's something that happens off camera, they make the lead or whoever's involved do those like in the moment interviews to like
Hmm.
fill the audience in, but we
Right.
had no information. So it was shocking, but it was just like,
It was
it was
confusing.
confusing.
Yeah, no, I literally was rewinding it because I was like, I must have missed
Yeah.
something. I like pressed rewind like 4 times. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
like I must have been spacing out. Like, when did they have this deep talk about religion? Like, where was I? Why wasn't I
Yeah.
invited? Like, I need to know. No, that was so confusing. And there was also like it was just so vague. I feel like it was just like, oh, we had different views on religion. And then he was like, well, sorry it didn't work out. I like, what was that? It was so bizarre. And he seemed almost like anticipating that was going to happen. Like I didn't think he was surprised by it at all, which kind of makes me think that maybe the fantasy suite date didn't go as well as like he had been saying on camera, because he seemed to just kind of like take it in stride and was like, all right, well, bye.
Totally. I
So
think
confusing.
it was so confusing. I think like if I had to make an educated guess, because I feel like I'm also a producer on the show,
Mhm.
I
Yes.
think that like what happened is they made him film like talking about how the
Mhm.
fantasy suite went, and they
Mhm.
just like forced him to do that so they had content and it wouldn't be like they're setting us up for a shock. But
Right.
I think that like a what did they like differ on about religion
Right.
that was like
They seem to be so on the same page with like everything
I,
else.
I
And
know.
like for it to be like this colossal that she's like sending him home over it and is like, "Oh, I can't marry you because of this." Like it must have been huge. And
That's what
also
I thought.
this is not the first time this season that something like this has happened, that they've like shown us something and then we don't know the full story, and I'm so over it. Like I just want to like
Totally.
I need to know everything. I need cameras rolling 24/7. Like I want to know everything that happened.
Totally. And I think that the huge miss that Bachelorette has is not showing these actual real conversations. And I
Mhm.
think that's why I'm starting to like other dating shows better, because why they're just always talking in these general statements
Mhm.
that are just so like surface level, and then they always reference like deep conversations, and this season they've shown the most like intimate
Mhm.
conversations probably that they ever have,
Yeah, I
and
agree.
it's still not enough. And I I guess it's like with the fantasy suite, it's the first time that they don't have a camera, so maybe it's stuff that they don't want to talk on air about, but I'm like, that's
Right.
the juicy part of the show.
Right, exactly, exactly, and I feel like, I mean, going off of that, there's just so many things that are not spoken about. Because I get that they obviously do get into some, like, very deep things that's like, "Okay, this is, like, integral to who I am as a human being," and I get that, but at the same time, like, don't you wanna know, like, really basic things too? Like, I feel like there's so many other layers that it's like, you need to know so much more about a person, and you can't learn that all in the fantasy suite week, like, at all, and that's really the only time that they get to, like, have those kinds of conversations, and, like you said, it's just such, like, generic kind of, like, phrases that they're saying, like, "Oh, I love my family." Like, yeah, most people do. Like,
Yes,
let's
yes.
let's get something else here. Like, can you do taxes? Like, what, like, I need to know that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Like, what's your astrological sign? Like, let's get into it because like I love that you love your family, but like let's move on. You know what I mean?
Completely. Yeah, I feel the exact same way, and that's why for me it the show is just getting not like redundant, because
Mhm.
obviously there's crazy shit that happens on each
Right.
season that's different from the last, but like I literally basically fast forward through a lot of the like dates, or like I'm
Right.
doing dishes or making dinner, because it's like you don't have to be there for it, because it's just like I love my family, I love my job, I love
Mhm.
traveling and like stuff like that. I'm like, yeah,
Right.
and me too. Like,
So do most human beings, yes. No, and I had, you probably saw this in one of my TikToks, but I had been talking about how the dates this season were, like, very subpar, just, like, the date ideas themselves, and, obviously completely understand that, like, we're in the middle of a pandemic and you can't do the crazy things that you usually do, but I mean, some of them I'm like, how are you even supposed to like learn anything about someone when you're playing strip dodgeball? I feel like you're not
totally.
really getting into it then. And that's how a lot of the dates were. They were just like very boring, which I couldn't tell if that was a good thing or a bad thing because especially with Tasha and Ivan, like all of their dates were very much real life scenarios and things that you would actually do as a couple. So I kind of thought that that like boded well for them because it was like, oh, this is like what we would do on like a typical weekend or something like that. And it wasn't like, oh, we went parasailing because whoever does that in real life? Like, come on. So
Yes.
I thought that their relationship had like a good real life element to it, but it was just like very boring. And I just the whole time I was like, I just cannot see them actually ending up together. Like they were very good together, but just like very blah.
Okay, so you brought up like such good points, because you're right about the dates. A lot of the previous leads have said my favorite dates were when, because obviously there was international travel, but they're like
Right.
the best ones were when we were like walking through a market, or like
Right.
walking through like a beautiful, I don't know,
Hmm.
forest or whatever.
Right, right.
And
Peach,
instead of
yeah.
like, yeah, remember when Nick
Like,
Vial was like in that gravity airplane? Like,
yes,
yeah, like
yes.
just
Like,
like
they
shit
do
like
the
that.
weirdest things. And it doesn't like in my opinion, that doesn't even like make good television because like
No.
and sometimes it just goes on for way too long. Like you're watching them for 5 minutes like cliff jumping. And it's like that's great, but like nothing's happened. You know what I mean? And then they always
Totally.
come out of the date and they're like, wow, I really feel like I can do anything with him by my side. And I'm like, all right, let's I don't know. I just it just seems kind of old now.
Totally, especially because like that doesn't actually prepare you for real life, because
Right.
any friend or even acquaintance would be kind and like supportive when you're
Right.
skydiving. Like,
Exactly. A total stranger would be like, "You got this." And she's like,
yes.
"Wow, I need to marry him." Like, "No, come on."
Totally. But the other point that you brought up, and this made me really reflect on like, did I even pay attention to this season? Because I swore that, yeah, she was gonna pick Brendan and Ivan
Mhm.
was gonna be the runner up. And
Mhm.
then I really realized, like, this week in the fucking 4 hours of Bachelorette that I had to
Yep.
endure,
Yep.
that it was always Zac.
Yeah. I
Like,
know, I know exactly what you're saying. I was a little confused by that too, even though I knew in my head that they were gonna end up together. So I
yeah.
kept on looking out for it, and every time I'd see them together, I'm like, "Hmm, really? Like this? Like this is who ends up together?" And I think it's always kind of like there's always that like misleading element of it where obviously the producers want you to think that one person is gonna come out the winner at the end, just to get you. But I think her like Tayshia and Zac, I think they had a really good relationship from the beginning, and I think that makes all the difference. Like if you even just have a good first conversation with all of the deep talks about how you love your family, then I think you're kind of in it, and like you're considered like higher up on Tayshia's list at that point because all of the people that made it to the end, I think she like kind of clicked with like right from the beginning. I think it was almost kind of like easier this season than other seasons to be like, "Oh, he's gonna go pretty far this season." Do you know what I'm saying?
Totally, like, I felt very clear about who the top 4 were
Yeah.
gonna be
Right.
from the get-go, but I just yeah, I didn't see the nuance in Zac and Tayshia's relationship. I don't know, she's such a good bachelorette that way that
Mhm.
I don't think I picked up that it was Zac, and I think
Right.
you're right, it's like, you have to make a good first impression and, like, have that natural conversation
Right.
flow first, but I think the other thing, if anybody is planning on going on The Bachelorette, I think the other thing that you have to be is direct and clear about
Mhm.
your feelings, because I think
Ben.
that
Ben.
yeah, seriously,
Yeah.
like, I think that the lead is in such a confusing position
Right.
that they want the comfort and the reassurance about their relationship, and I think especially, like, with some of the proposals in the last couple years, like, I think they also and, like, it gets watched by, like, tens of millions of people. I think they just
Right.
also want that, like, assurance that they'll get picked back,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I think that that's what Zach has, especially over the other 2 gentlemen.
Right, yeah, he was definitely very direct and, like, clear about everything from the beginning. Obviously, Ben was not like that, and I think we hear that so much, when people go home on these shows that they're always like, "Oh, I wish I had opened up more," like, that's always something that they say, or like, "Oh, I wish I told her how I really felt." So I think that part doesn't really surprise me, and it's obviously, like, a common theme on The Bachelor and Bachelorette, that like the earlier you can get in there and kind of like lay it all out there, the farther you'll probably end up going. So
Totally.
life hack for everyone
Yes.
who wants to.
Honestly, and I feel like it's only a matter of time before I know someone that's, like, on the show. You're next,
I think I should
Maddie.
go on. Yeah.
Yes, you should apply. You should have applied for Matt James's season.
Oh my God, I love Matt James. So I was like really disappointed that I didn't apply for this season. I've like been following him ever since like Tyler Cameron started posting with him, like after Hannah B season. And I've been obsessed with him forever. And then I found out he was gonna be the Bachelor and I was like, okay, this is it. This is my chance. But I'm
Is
not there, unfortunately.
I was
So
gonna say, like, is that something that you're interested in, is being a contestant?
like as a joke, but also like I think it would be so like because I can like talk as much shit as I want about the show and like the contestants, and I mean I always do try to be like, okay, if I was in this position like I'd probably do the same thing, but I kind of just think it'd be fun to like be in that situation and see like, okay, is it actually as like intense and stressful as people say it is, or like and how much of it is like being twisted and manipulated by the producers, like that's always something that I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Like that came up a lot when Claire was still here with us and she got into the fight with Yosef. She got into the fight with Yosef and they were like yelling at each other and she's like, "Well, you've been talking to me for 10 minutes and we had only seen like 15 seconds of this." And I'm like, I need to see the full unedited like I just there was so much I think that was cut out because the season was such a mess, And I just kind of like wish I could see everything from like a different perspective. That's like not the producers of The Bachelorette like trying to manipulate what we're seeing and what we're not seeing, you know?
Totally, because I remember with Ari's finale. Did you watch that one?
No, I did not watch that season.
Okay, it's for the best, surely. But his finale, he broke up with Becca Kufrin and then
Hmm.
went with his runner-up Lauren, and
Yes.
they aired the unedited footage of him dumping her.
Oh my gosh.
And this was the first time that we had seen any unedited like footage, and it
Right.
is wild how vastly different it is from the show.
Right. Right. And I mean, like I feel everyone who watches the show, like, knows how, like, edited everything is, and even we always know, like, the first night that the season premieres in the little clips that they give, like, the sneak peeks, and even those things that you think are gonna be so huge are never a big deal in the end, which is so annoying because you get so hung up on them and then it's
Mhm.
nothing. But yeah, I think, like, just so much of it can get taken out of context because my whole thing is when they did the Men Tell All and Yosef came back, I was like, "Did they pay this man to be here? Because why would he show back up? Like, everyone hated you, and you willingly, like, go on." Like, that just
No,
made no sense to me. So, like, in my mind, I'm like, "Hmm, was there, like, something else to this that, like, he still feels super justified?" I mean, don't get me wrong, he's an asshole, but, like, I'm like, "Okay, maybe there was something else that we didn't see in this, like,
right.
10-minute fight that they had." You know what I mean?
Okay, you're bringing up the best points, and I'm so
Okay.
glad. Okay,
I just
so
yeah, I can't help it.
okay, the appearance fee for Men Tell All is $10,000
Huh.
for that
That makes more
recording.
sense. That
So
makes more sense.
that seems like a lot. It is like a lot. I think that they film it over like 12 to 16 hours.
Oh my
So
god.
it seems like a lot, but obviously it's like a really, really long day. But
Right.
I remember when there was someone that was, I think it was, so you watched Nick Viall's season.
Mhm.
Do you remember Liz, the girl that had a one night stand with him at a wedding and then came on
No.
the show? It was like a
Oh, yes, like, vaguely, yes.
yeah, for like the first 2 episodes, she didn't come to the Women Tell All, and that's when it like started coming out about like the details about how they book the Women Tell All. She was at a wedding, and I was like, I would skip for $10,000 anybody's
No, seriously, seriously.
wedding. I'd be like, sorry to my sister or whatever. Like, I'm taking the $10,000. I will buy you
Yeah.
the nicest wedding gift.
Maid of honor, but, like, I need to be in the women's hall. So
Yes.
sorry, like, gotta do what I gotta do.
Like, honestly. And then the other part is I think you're right. Like, and I think Nick Viall, as much as I like love to hate him, but also hate to love him, he talks about like the people that you think are so bad aren't that
Mhm.
bad, and the people that you think are so good aren't that good.
Right, right.
And
Which
he
I think
has to do that.
yeah, and I think I've seen that a lot because I always am, like, following the people, like, on social media after, and I'm like, "Wait, that's so weird that, like, they're all friends when I thought they hated each other and that this person was, like, such a bitch," and it's like, "Oh, wait, okay, maybe there's more to this." I mean, there's obviously more to it, but I think, that always goes to show a lot, like, who ends up being friends, like, afterwards. It's kinda like, okay, so that little fight that you had clearly was, like, just a blip and was not, like, a big deal like they made it out to be.
Totally. I think that's the case for most people. Yeah, that's a really good point. Like all the people that were arch enemies, like
Mhm.
on the TV show, they do like kind of water under the bridge. And I think
Right.
a lot of it is chalked up to the high pressure situation that
Right. Oh, for sure.
and that no one has experience or like none of them are from reality TV backgrounds. So they just
Mhm.
don't have any idea of like what they truly signed up for.
Right, right. So true.
And they don't like that's another thing is I don't think that they usually talk to a lot of cast because they all sign probably like NDAs and like can't
Mhm.
talk about like the real stuff, I think. So,
Right, right, which makes sense, but would ruin the magic.
absolutely. So, what did you think about like Tayshia picking Zach? Like, did you like the proposal? Do you think that they're like the real deal?
Um, well, okay, first of all, I was happy that a couple actually ended up together at the end of the season, because that hasn't happened in a long time. Like,
Totally.
Colton and Cassie didn't get engaged, Hannah Brown and Jed didn't work out, and then Peter Weber ended up with Kelly. Like, so it was actually nice to like see what is supposed to happen. Um, and yeah, I kind of thought I kind of thought last night's episode was like really sad for Ben, because it was like so hyper focused on Zach, and I was like, okay, we clearly all know who's gonna win at the end of this, but no, I think they were really good together. Like I said, I think her and Ivan were kind of boring, and I didn't see that there was any like spark between them, I guess. And I think I kind of saw that with her and Zach the whole time. And I don't know, he seems like a really good guy, and I love Tayshia, so I think that they'll be good together.
Yeah, I definitely get more friend vibes with Ivan
Yes, for sure.
than like romantic interest. And I think I finally realized that like last night. I think I just had these like goggles on because I like just love him so much and I love her so
Hmm.
much. And they just looked like the perfect couple.
Right,
So
right.
I think I was just like kind of rooting for him. But
Hmm.
I think that Zach and Tasha just have such good chemistry
They do, yeah, for
and
sure.
like physical chemistry. And
Hmm.
I think they have like, this sounds gross. I don't know why I keep saying this and I keep hearing it on like podcasts and stuff, but they have a playfulness.
Yeah, no, that's for sure a good word to describe it. I agree with that word.
Like they just seem to have a lot of fun together. And I think that
Hmm.
that's like not underrated, but I think that that's like a really important factor when you're
Right.
like dating someone, because a lot of times life is like boring or tough or whatever. And like they seem like, I don't know, they just seem to fit really well
Yeah.
together.
I think that's like the other tricky part about like being on the show is it has to be kind of 50-50. Like, I feel like you have to show that you're like fun and lighthearted and like can do fun, adventurous things. But then the other half of it is like you also have to low key divulge like your deepest, darkest secrets so they know everything about you in like the few weeks that you're together. So I think Zach did a good job kind of balancing that, where like their dates were always like fun, but also like he was pretty open with her about like everything that had happened in his past and things like that. And I think that balance is again what would like get you to the end of like a season of something like this, because I think it's important to have both sides of it. And if you look at like other people that have like come really close to like the end of one of these seasons, it's always like they have more of one than the other. Like they're more fun together, but they're not as serious and like emotional, or they're like too emotional and you don't really get to see that like fun, almost like real life kind of side to it, you know?
Yeah, I love that. That's actually a really, really good point. And that makes me hopeful that they'll actually last because they
Right.
have this really good mix.
Hmm.
Whereas, like, I think you're right. Like, a lot of couples get off the show and then they're like, oh, those are skeletons in your closet
Right, right.
that I didn't know about or that you haven't like worked through or whatever, that
Hmm.
just makes it so hard to just like stay together.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you like we were saying earlier, that having that real life element of it, I think is so important too, because I mean, it's all like well and good when you're like gallivanting through Prague, but like if you can like make it work after that, like that's what ultimately matters. And so I think that in a way was good for this season, because they were just like stuck at a resort, so they didn't have like anything crazy that wasn't super real life, which I think is kind of good. So I think that definitely bodes well for them as well
Yeah,
after this season.
that's a really good point because a lot of people are connecting or like seeing the similarities between Bachelor in Paradise and
Mm,
these like COVID seasons. And it's probably going to be
right,
the same for Matt. But yeah, it just emulates real life a lot more
right,
than all this international travel and these exciting dates. And you're right, it probably is just more realistic and so many
exactly.
more BIP relationships last. So
Right,
I've got high
right.
hopes.
Yeah, I do too.
I think Zach, out of not the whole cast, but the top like four, whatever, is like the least my type or the least like guy I would be interested in. So I just like didn't super care. Like,
I know exactly what you mean because same. I was like a Ben stan. I'm still a Ben stan. So it was kind of hard for me to like watch this all happen because I felt so bad. And I mean, it was also I kind of had that I mean, this wasn't as bad, but on Hannah B's season, like when she didn't choose Tyler, it was like you're shaking your TV and you're like, what the hell are you thinking? And I kind of was having that a little bit throughout this. Like I was like, okay, like come on. Like and I feel like everyone was rooting for Ben too to some extent because like he was just adorable and like you couldn't not root for him, like even as just like the underdog a little bit. And then to see him like make it this far, it was like, oh my gosh, wait, he has a chance. Then it was like, oh no, you actually don't, which was so sad.
I think the Hannah B thing will, I don't think anyone can ever make a bigger mistake than
I
that.
That was like one thing where I was like, no, like cut the cameras, like this isn't real. Like what is going on here?
Oh
And
my God.
yeah, but that was just like such a good example of I feel like it's one of those things in hindsight when you watch everything and you put it all together, you're probably like, oh shoot. But this season, I'm like, come on, Ben is right there. Like just but whatever.
Totally.
Her and
And that
Zach
was
are
me with
cute.
Ivan. Yeah,
Right.
they're cute. They are really
They
cute.
are cute. Yeah.
And yeah, I agree with you that the simple ending, or it seemed simple compared to the last couple of seasons, is like
Mhm.
actually refreshing.
It was refreshing because I was almost like, is this actually going to work? Like, I'm so used to just having it be a total letdown. And you think that, like, because they have this whole season where they're romanticizing everything. And then for it to end with no one being together is like, okay, well, what was the point of all this? So, it was refreshing to see an actual like engagement that just like went smoothly. But this season too just had so many people have been saying it, just like the best group of guys. So it was kind of hard not to be rooting for so many people at once, which I feel like hasn't been the case in like years past. This was definitely a group of like really good guys. There was definitely some guys I didn't like Ed.
Oh,
I think
I
he
hate
he
him.
took up too much airtime. I was saying to my friends, I'm like, if Ed can make it that long on a season of The Bachelorette, then I can do it on The Bachelor because he brought nothing. He brought simply nothing to the show, and he was there for so long. He was just like kicking around, and every single week he would get a rose over someone, and I was like, why? He didn't even
Why?
speak to Tayshia. Like they did not even talk half the time.
I know, I know.
Crazy.
He was definitely a producer pick, like one of those guys
Hmm.
that they're like,
Hmm.
you have to keep Ed, like, keep
It was
whoever
just like
else.
it was too obvious, I feel. It was like too in your face because there was literally no conversation with him and Tasha. So there wasn't even like, oh, okay, like at least he's nice. It was like, no, we hate him. He only likes Chris Harrison. Like, let's just move on with our
Oh
lives.
my God, he does. But you're right, because usually, like past villains and stuff, it would be like they're so nice and sweet and kind to the lead, and then like an
Exactly.
asshole to the other contestants. But like
Right, right.
we didn't see any connection or
No,
anything.
no. Yeah, like Luke Key on Hannah's season was like such an angel to her, and then obviously the worst person ever, behind closed doors. But I think I don't know. Ed just really brought nothing to the table. And he was just like a classic like instigator where he was always starting drama with absolutely everyone that would listen to him and never even seemed to talk to Tasha. It was a little too much for me, but it's
It
not
was
believable.
it was way too much, and I hate that when it's just when they when you can just visibly see the producer intervention, like
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
just it takes you out of the like experience, and I think so
Exactly.
many people are just getting more like aware of what to look out for, and
Mhm.
they need to like do a better job of like trying to hide it.
Right, right. And as much as he was like the villain of the season, he wasn't really a villain. He was just kind of like a pot stirrer, I think. Like he wasn't really like a bad guy, but he just was kind of like there to like start shit a little bit. But I don't know, they didn't really have like a stereotypical villain besides Yosef, but he was gone after like once Tasha was there anyway, so it didn't really feel like there was like a villain character this season, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that too. Like there was that one like kind of pushing incident, but like
Mhm.
and like some of the yelling and stuff, but nothing was like egregious. Like sometimes
Mhm.
it's like this person is like disgusting and like I
Right.
never want to see them, like Lee on Rachel's season and stuff like that.
Yes, yes.
But none of it was like, yeah, like in comparison to other villains, like it
Yeah,
wasn't
exactly.
bad.
And like you said, it usually has that element of like super, super nice to the Bachelorette and then like a total douche to everyone else. And we didn't really have that. Which that makes for good TV. Like I don't need to see the parasailing, but like I need to see the villain.
Yes,
Like that's what
yes.
I need.
Totally. I know. I'm so like that. And that's why, like, I usually do something while I'm watching. And, like, that's why I was confused last night. And I think I rewinded like 2 or 3 times too, because I was like, did I just like scroll on my phone and like miss like something? And it was like, no, it just, they edited it really poorly.
Yeah, I've had to do that a couple times this season. I'm like, did I miss something? Because there's like a weird comment made. But last night with Ivan and the religion thing was definitely like the biggest one where it was like, okay, something happened and we just clearly did not see it.
Yeah, and we also missed like the after the final rose like huge production because that's when usually Tayshia would have like deep dived some of this stuff and I'm so sad that we don't have like any closure with like what actually happened.
I know. I was wondering about that too because they literally went from like Tayshia and Zach's proposal straight into like Matt's season of The Bachelor. And I was like, okay, you didn't give us any follow up, which is kind of sad. But I did check Tayshia's Instagram this morning and her and Zach are together. So like that made me happy because they
Good.
hadn't even really posted anything on their Instagrams either. And I was like, oh my gosh, what if they're not together? Like that would be so bad. But they're good. So
That's good. Yeah, I saw that they're doing like all the interview circuits. So
hmm
I'm gonna I love the postseason like
oh yeah,
interviews and
same.
stuff. So
Same.
I'm so excited to like dive into all of that.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts that you want to add about like the Bachelorette finale that you were like surprised about or want to discuss?
I think we had kind of touched on this earlier, but just Ben coming back for what seemed like no reason, I thought was kind of pointless. I didn't really see what was supposed to be happening there. Obviously it was so dramatic when he came back and she was like so shocked and was like really confused, like couldn't believe that he was there. And then she just is like, okay, like you can go to the rose ceremony and we'll talk after. And then like he meets her family and then it just is like, okay, that's it. Like, no, I've chosen Zach. And I thought, I don't know, it's like kind of shitty to like bring him back only to send him home like a day later after meeting her family and everything. And I think it like really gets like his hopes up because he's like, oh, she wanted me to stay, but like only to choose Zach over him, which kind of was sad.
I know, and I think I always think about what would happen off camera. So, like, think about, especially with COVID, I think that they all kind of stuck around a little bit on the
Right.
resort before they got to leave. So
Yeah.
I just like see him like probably crying in like a hotel room, and then all of a sudden, like, yeah, you can come back, and then just like not again. And the only two reasons I can think of it is like Tayshia being like, okay, I sent him home, but like I like need to be firm in my like I need to for sure know that I'm doing the right
Right.
thing. Or I just see the producers like, you know what, it hasn't been too like dramatic. Like we need
hmm
to do something like else and really
Right.
surprise people and send Ivan home now and just bring Ben.
Yeah, I think that kind of was almost a little suspicious how Ben shows up and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, Ivan, like our religions, like we can't make this work. Like Ben, you get a rose. That was like it was too weird and it happened too quickly. Like I said, I think the whole Ivan and Tasha breakup was like so like anticlimactic. Like nothing even happened and he just like left. And then that tying in with the fact that then Ben is back and got a rose and now he's in the final two. That was like a little sus to me, but yeah, all in all, I think the theme of people like coming back this season was kind of pointless because like it never really worked out for them in the long run. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that they needed more drama, and I think that
hmm
honestly, it felt like Tayshia needed a reason to break up with Ivan.
Yes, that's kind of yeah, I feel like it almost, I mean, obviously we don't know the conversation that they were even referring to, but it did seem just very like, okay, here's a reason that kind of makes sense. Like, oh, our religion, and then whatever. And then he just goes home. It was really random.
Totally. And you brought up Tayshia's family. They seemed
Hmm.
lovely. I'm like, no wonder
Hmm.
you're like such a like role model because your
Yeah,
family seems
right, right.
like lovely.
Hmm.
But the one thing I didn't like was when Tayshia's dad was like, I don't want you to make like the hugest mistake ever. Like what I forgot the wording,
Hmm.
but and like get engaged again. And maybe it's just because I'm young, but like for me, like that isn't the biggest mistake. And to like frame it in that way is just so much pressure. And like it's filled with so much like shame. Like, oh, if this didn't work out, then you're like bad. If you are getting unengaged or breaking up with someone or like divorcing, it's like you're probably doing something for yourself that like
Hmm.
you needed to do. And like framing it in like a mistake just seemed like really, I don't know, weird.
No, I totally know what you mean. And also I think that whole conversation, I was like, okay, but you understand what this show is, right? Like, you like, as she was getting on the plane to go to this resort and become the Bachelorette, like that's what the end of this would look like anyways. So it kind of seems like too little too late to be like, oh, maybe don't get engaged tomorrow.
Yeah,
Like that was like
yeah, good point.
like, could you have brought this up earlier, Dad?
Yeah,
um but
yeah,
also I just like you said, like it ends in an engagement, not a wedding, you know? Like it's not like this means that they're gonna get married like the next day. Like obviously they're gonna have at least 6 months in between when they get engaged and when the finale airs anyways. So they have like at least that much time to figure things out. And then, like obviously they can take however long they want to actually get married. But
totally.
and I think like we've seen so many times in the past that those couples in that time period, that's when they like find out like, okay, is this actually going to work, or it like, do we think we can make it in the real world or not? So I think definitely like an engagement, like obviously yes, that means that you're going to get married, but like if something happens in between that and the wedding, like it's fine.
Totally. In Bachelor world, I feel like an engagement is just not the same in the real world.
Oh, absolutely not.
Like, it's just
After like 3 dates with the person, you're just like, let's go. Like, we're going to Vegas, we're getting hitched. No, yeah, it obviously does not carry the same like severity as it does in the real world. But I mean, either way, like a broken engagement, definitely not the worst thing in the world. I feel like a lot of it
totally.
has to do with her having been divorced in the past and things like that, which I like understand why it was like more serious to her than it would be to other bachelorettes. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens.
Totally. Do you see any of these guys like as potential next bachelors, which would wild enough be literally like a full year from now?
I know that's what's so crazy because if Paradise happens, I don't know which ones are going to end up going on Paradise versus becoming the actual Bachelor. And obviously, Matt James came out of nowhere. Like, he had never been on the show before, and here he is. So I can kind of see, people are mostly saying Ben and Brendan as far as like what I've seen for Bachelor. I can definitely see Ben because fan favorite, so sweet. And I can see Brendan too, but in the way that they kind of left things where he wasn't ready for to be engaged, I can kind of be like, I don't know if he'd be as likely to be the Bachelor because obviously that would end in an engagement too. So like I don't know how they would frame it. Like, oh, he's taken the time and now he's ready to get married. You know what I mean? Like I don't know
They
how you would frame
could.
that after having that being the way that you ended things with Tasha.
Yeah, or is that the perfect like because you know how all the bachelors have like a thing? Maybe
Oh
that's the
yeah.
thing. Like I'm ready
Exactly.
now.
Like
I
now
wasn't
he's
ready.
ready. Right. Exactly. Yeah. No, I could totally see them spinning it like that. So yeah, I would say if any of them are gonna be like actual bachelors, I think it would be Ben or Brendan.
Yeah, I could see that. Will always be rooting for Ivan, but and then Brendan, I don't know, and
I
Ben for sure, but
right.
Ben for me, I don't know, a lot of people and like I don't want to put this on anybody because it's like I don't know him, but I was
Hmm.
listening to like Rachel and Nick talk about him and just how difficult the seasons are. And like, I would never want him to like slide back into like dark times if something like didn't go well or
Right, exactly.
not
Exactly. I
not
could
saying that he's like that fragile or anything. He's
right,
a
no, no, I
resilient
totally get it.
person, but I don't know.
No,
It's
I get what you're
tough.
saying, and I think I guess I could see Ivan potentially being Bachelor, but I feel like we just didn't see a ton of his, like, personality almost, like, um, I don't know, I just don't think he has as much, like, zest, I guess, as, like, some
Yeah,
of the others that made him, like that made you, like, love him. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and I
totally.
think that they really, like, look for that when they're choosing, the next Bachelor because they want it to be someone that's already a fan favorite, obviously, for, like, ratings and things like that. I think I could see him or Ben or Brendan, so
Totally. Yeah, it was a really good group of guys. So
mhm.
I'm really excited for like the potential, and I usually get let down by this series, but
Mhm.
like I'm really excited about the direction The Bachelor's going and just like the potential because of the new cast. Like you said, you were kind of hit or miss on some of the past seasons. Like I
Mhm.
fully did not like I kept up with all the drama off
Right,
camera,
right,
like on
obviously.
Instagram and stuff. But
Yep.
like I fully did not watch any of Peter's season. Like I watched some clips maybe, but like it's just been not the kind of casting that I like. So this has just been like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I know, I totally agree, and I think it was because we had a lot of older guys because it was originally Claire's season, so they just had, like, an older group of guys to begin with, which I think made it so we were seeing so much more of, like, the emotional side of things because, of their age, and then I mean, I think it's also so different, like, the things that you look for when you're watching The Bachelor versus The Bachelorette, like, on The Bachelor, the drama is always like A1 because, girls are pretty catty a lot of the times. And definitely on this show, they make it seem like that even more so. So I think like the drama typically on The Bachelor is a little bit more like heightened than it is on The Bachelorette, which in this season two, it was almost less about the drama and more like rooting for literally everyone because there
Yeah,
was so many good guys this season.
that's a good point. Like they all have life experience that just
Hmm.
brings so much more depth than any of like the really, really young people.
Right, right.
And then you're right. The girls bring it every season. Like I like Bachelor seasons just so much more because the girls are just better casting and
Mm-hmm.
the bachelorettes are always just like level-headed and you can
Right.
just like always tell who they really like and they're
Exactly.
good at picking, so it's kind of a predictable ending and stuff.
Yeah,
So yeah. So it's different, but it's all good.
it is good.
Are you excited for Matt's season? I literally cannot believe we're going to be watching more Bachelor in like less than 2 weeks.
That makes me really excited that we don't have to like actually wait in between. Because I feel like most of the time it's like, oh, you have to wait a few months until The Bachelor comes around. So I'm really excited for that, and I'm really excited to see Matt. I think it'll be interesting because he was never on a season of The Bachelorette, so he doesn't really get to say that line that they all say, like, "Oh, I've been in this position before." Like, he doesn't get to play that card. And I think that'll be interesting to see kind of like how he handles it. And I think that'll be really telling too. If you've never been in this situation before, like, how the hell do you handle it being the Bachelor? And I'm really excited for it. The teaser that they played last night made it look very enticing as always. But yeah, I think it'll be a pretty good season.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I feel like I usually need, especially with like the 4 hours a week bullshit that people, I'm like,
Hmm.
even though I'm not doing anything, like I'm like, I
Like,
do
I
want
have
to,
stuff to do.
yeah, like I at least want to pretend that I'm doing other things. But
Right, right.
like, I think I kind of do need the break to miss it. But honestly,
Mm,
since there's not tons of new TV, especially like reality TV,
right.
I'm ready for it.
Oh, we'll take what we can get at this point.
Totally. And I think you're right. It's going to be such a good season because they used to do this all the time. Like this used to
Mhm.
be the standard where they would pick
Right.
randoms and it made for really interesting TV. I think sometimes it's good because you have the built-in fandom of the people
Mm,
that come back, but you don't get this naive.
Right. Like the genuine aspect of it.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I'm really, really excited. And as you can probably tell, and as the listeners know, obsessed with Tyler and Matt, like fully.
Yeah. Dynamic duo. And I know that Tyler is in the season in some extent. So I will take what I can get.
Yes, me too.
But yeah, I'm really excited for it. It should be good.
Me too. And the trailer looked really good. And I've like briefly looked at the cast. Like I looked at their pictures and stuff. And it looks like a great group of women. So and
I
I
know.
think they'll just know what to do more because obviously this was their first COVID season and they didn't probably know as much as they do now. So I think it'll
Hopefully
just be
the
better.
dates will be a little bit better, a little bit more innovative.
The dates
but I
are
also
so bad.
they were so bad. But I also almost like the fact that not a lot of people know a whole lot about Matt. I think that adds to it because I mean, like we saw this past season how Claire got pissed at someone because like they didn't know anything about her and like her experience in Bachelor Nation and all of that. So I think that's kind of like a cool element too, is that you probably wouldn't know a ton about Matt when you're going on the show. Like obviously you can look at social media and things like that, but like we've never seen him in this position where he's like talking about his past and like his past relationships and his family and like all that stuff. Whereas you kind of have like a one up if you've seen them on The Bachelorette before. So I think that that is always kind of like fun.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Yeah, and I can't wait to learn more about him and like I think his thing this season is that he's never said I love you or like been in love and stuff like that. So
we love a good theme. We love a good
Yes.
overarching theme that gets touched on every episode. That's great.
Yeah, like literally dragged to like death.
Like overused again and again.
Oh my
Every
God.
promo. Yeah. I can see it now. Like, does Matt say that he loves her? And it's gonna be good.
It's gonna be good. Again, we're basically producers on the show.
We are. We could be, honestly. Yeah. We're undercover producers. I love that.
One like tiny tidbit before we wrap up because it is just so wild. But Ari and Lauren are having twins.
I saw that. So like I said, I didn't watch that season, but I know about it because I knew about their Instagram account for their daughter and how they talk in her voice.
Yes.
Which like I have my own opinions on that. I'll just say I think it's kind of fucking weird. But I don't know them as a couple, so like maybe that's like cute for them. Like I have no prior knowledge of them as a couple, but I did see on Instagram the other day that she posted that they were having twins, which is crazy. And she already made the Instagram account.
Yes. Okay. It's so wild. So Alessi, their other daughter, had an Instagram account, baby Luan Dyke.
Yeah.
And it has so many followers. I didn't even look. And then they made one for this baby. And then they just recently announced that it was twins. It has 86,000 followers. And
How is it that a fetus has so many more followers than me on Instagram? That doesn't sit well with me. I'm not gonna lie.
I know, truly. And the sad part is they reached like 20,000 before they even posted one single pic.
That's insane. That's actually so insane.
It's actually wild because I don't think anyone liked him as the Bachelor, but
that's what I had heard bad things. So when I kept on seeing so much about like their baby, I was like, wait, why do people care this much? Because I didn't think he was like a well-received person.
No, but people love them, like their couple. They have like a really successful YouTube like channel and
they're family vloggers.
Yep, they no, just wait. They flip houses and they vlog, do family vlogs. Like it's what everyone does. Like,
I totally get it because if I was in the position to be a family vlogger and have that be my source of income, I mean, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Me too.
But like, I'm like a complete sellout. Like, I don't care.
Yes, me too.
But I'm like, I don't know. I feel like, come on. I mean, let's shake it up. Can one of them like continue their like law career after they, finish their season of The Bachelorette? Like, I would love to see that. But very on brand for Bachelor Nation to be family vloggers and have their unborn child have way more followers than everyone on Instagram.
Completely. I shit talk it so much, but I would like I would drop anything to be like an influence. Like they will play this recording and be like, "This you?" Like,
no, and I'll be like, yes. And I said it then, I would do it too. Like I said, I'm unemployed in my parents' house right now, so I would give just about anything to be flipping houses and family vlogging. Like that's fine. That's fine. I could do that.
I will also say, because I'm not like super fans of them. I think they're like pretty conservative and like that's just not my like style.
Wow.
But
they just get worse and worse.
like truly. But I will say they do have really nice like design style. Like their house is beautiful and like their interiors are like beautiful. So I will say, and she had a gorgeous wedding and wedding dress. But that's probably the only things good I'll say about them.
Right. And at least they're still together. So we have to like a Bachelor success story any way we can get it nowadays because they are few and far between. So
true. And it's actually I will say one other nice thing. I'm being very generous.
You're too nice. It's the Canadian in you. You're too kind.
But I will say, like, after I don't know why or whatever he chose Becca and then went for Lauren, but actually seeing Lauren and him, like they actually are like soulmates or like whatever. Like they are actually like the right fit. Like they just work really well together. And so like obviously I wish them all the happiness in the world,
and it just peace of mind that their children will always be richer and more famous than the two of us. So we love that.
Like once they become like teens and they're like, oh cool, I already have hundreds of thousands of followers. Like
how crazy is that? And it's just gonna get like bigger and bigger, you know what I mean, as they get older. So
totally.
Wow.
I will say Crystal, did you watch Crystal and like Chris?
No.
Crystal was on also Ari's season.
Yeah, so I missed this whole thing.
Okay, so she was on Ari's season. She was like hated, and then or was she on Ari's season? Who knows? And then she was on Bachelor in Paradise, got engaged and married to this other guy, Chris Randone, who's like a loser.
That name sounds familiar. Yeah.
You would know if you saw, but they got divorced. She has a new boyfriend and she's pregnant. And they have an Instagram account for their baby at glitterbaby 2021. And it has over 15,000 followers.
Can I like turn back the clock and be a baby of a Bachelor couple? Because I feel like I would just kind of have it made at that point in time. That is insane. And
it's truly insane.
It's like it's hard to justify because we're talking about it right now. But like actually who cares? Like who cares? Like
I know.
I wouldn't follow these baby accounts. I mean, but then it's like I can say that because I didn't watch these seasons, but like I don't know. Like if a couple I had watched, then I probably would be way more likely to follow them and their unborn child on Instagram, but so crazy.
It's so weird. And it just seems so like they seem like just parasites. And again, I would do this in a heartbeat, but it's like, it just seems so like, oh, I'll just start an Instagram account for my fucking fetus. Like
that your fetus won't even get access to this account for like at least 15 years.
Literally,
like that's what's so insane. It's like, yeah, like good for you making an account for your child, but you're the one running it. Like you're the one getting the ad deals and everything like that. Like it's so messed up and it's so parasitic. I would do it tomorrow if I was asked, but it's a mess. It's like so in like the whole world of family vloggers is just like a whole other thing. So and that gets super parasitic as well because you're just like feeding off of your children. So they will need therapy when they're older, but it's good because they'll have the money to pay for therapy with all of their ad deals of their Instagram account that they've had for, 15 years. Will Instagram even be a thing when they're when
Who
they're old enough
knows?
to operate it. Like
When it's 2046 and they're getting access to their Instagram accounts, like
imagine if like our parents made like MySpace or something. Like what? Like I'd be like, okay, well this is useless to me now. Like,
yeah.
come on, no one cares.
Honey, you have 15,000 followers on MySpace.
Like that would do me no good today, unfortunately. Yeah. So that would just be depressing. And I feel like these kids are going to be a little let down when, you know, they're old enough and they realize that they were super famous on a completely outdated form of social media. That'll be
yeah. That's so funny. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was super fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I had a blast.
Good. And you should come back and we'll talk about family vlogging because that's something I haven't talked about. I need to.
I feel like I just discovered a new passion that I have for like anti-family vlogging, and I would love to deep dive it with you. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I love that. Where can the listeners like see your TikToks recapping The Bachelorette?
Okay. My TikTok username is mad_Mitch. Just rolls off the tongue like that. I love it. And then my Instagram is Maddie__Mitchell. So again, super easy to remember. Just first thing that comes to mind.
If you're looking for good Bachelor content, are you going to be doing like your hot takes for Matt season?
Oh yeah, I have nothing else to do, so amazing. I will be doing that. Yeah.
Okay, well follow Maddie on TikTok and Instagram to find those.
I would love that.
Thanks again so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
And there you have it. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you to Maddie for joining me on this episode of RTBP. If you liked what you heard, follow along on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at RTBP Podcast and leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. I hope that you have a safe and magical holiday, whatever you celebrate, and a beautiful year ahead. I'll probably post at least one more episode in 2020 before we can put this year to rest, so I'll save all my well wishes for then. As always, I'm your host, Tori, and I am ready to be petty. See you soon. Bye.